Alright guys, today I want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. And not the Cavaliers from the modern era when LeBron James played in Cleveland or even the post-LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers. I want to go back to the 80s and 90s and talk about the Cavs back in the day. And actually in the late 80s and early 90s, the Cleveland Cavaliers were a formidable opponent against the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference. It was actually always the Bulls, followed by the Knicks and the Cavaliers. Back in the day, the Cavs had some great players, including Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, Mark Price, Craig Elo, the list goes on and on. And in 2012, Nike actually celebrated the Cleveland Cavaliers with this pair of Cavs 4s. These shoes represent the shot, the infamous shot where Michael Jordan hit the game-winning shot over Craig Elo in 1989. When this pair of shoes came out in 2012, it was surrounded by a whole bunch of other Air Jordan 4s that also released that year. Many of them were in the OG colors, and some of them were in new colors, like this colorway, which is reminiscent of the Cleveland Cavaliers jerseys back in the 80s and 90s. Nowadays, the Cavaliers are more of a burgundy and navy, but back in the day, they were a bright royal blue and orange. If you go look at old footage of Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, Mark Price, you'll see Cavaliers jerseys that look just like this shoe. Come on over here and have a look at this shoe. It's beautiful. It features a black suede upper with accents that match the Cleveland Cavaliers jersey. So this shoe was made and inspired by the shot, and it's not the only time that Nike has taken inspiration from major moments in Michael Jordan's career. We know that we've got the flu game 12s, the 6s where he won his first championship are celebrated with a Bulls and Lakers colorway. The Bulls beat the Lakers for Michael's first championship. There's also a Pistons colorway of the 6s, which is the team that the Bulls defeated in the Eastern Conference Finals leading up to their first championship. And here we have a shoe reminiscent of the shot. But actually, back in the day in 1989, when MJ hit that game-winning shot, he was wearing this pair of 4s with Nike Air on the heels. This pair right here came out in 1999, and it's the only time in the retro era where Nike has put Nike Air on the heels of an Air Jordan 4. This pair released as part of a pack of 4s that also came out with the original white and cement colorway, and these were the 7th and 8th Jordan Retros ever to be released by Nike. Remember, the first 6 Jordan Retros came out in '94. It featured the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then boom, in 1999, some 4s came out, including these ones right here. I would argue that it's all about the OG colorways. And even though this pair of Cavs 4s is trading for about $400 or so, it doesn't even come close to this OG colorway with Nike Air on the heels. I think if Nike's going to go ahead and pay tribute to major events in Michael's career, they should go with the OG colors and release them in super duper limited quantities. They could have made this shoe reminiscent of the shot instead of these Cavs ones, and they'd be a huge hit. Anyway, I want to show you a pair of shoes that I recently picked up this last week, and I'm really excited about them. And here they are. They're the Air Ships from 1984, and they're game-worn by Larry Nance. Come have a look at this beautiful pair of shoes. Larry Nance played for the Phoenix Suns and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And in 1984, he played with the Phoenix Suns, and that's when these shoes came out. You can see right here Larry Nance's autograph. If you look at the shoe in back, you can also make out Larry Nance, and if you look closely over here, you'll see a number 22. We all know MJ made the number 23 famous. Larry Nance is one of the great players that wore number 22, in addition to other players like Clyde Drexler, of course. Anyway, when you look at this pair of shoes, the Air Ship, it's actually the first pair of basketball shoes worn by Michael Jordan in the NBA. And people say sometimes that the Bred ones that were banned by the NBA were actually Bred Air Ships. So going back to what I was saying earlier about Nike releasing shoes having to do with Michael Jordan's early moments in his career, imagine if they made Air Ships in Bred or in white and red, reminiscent of the first shoe that MJ wore, if you will, the Air Jordan 0. When you look closely at this shoe, it has some really neat features, including the tongue, which says Nike Air, reminiscent of the OG Air Jordan 1s. And when you look over here, you'll see that this shoe is a size 15.5. It came out in '84, and this TYPS1 at the end right here is the same coating that goes on the early Air Jordan 1s that Michael wore. If you look in here at the insoles, you can probably barely make them out, but it says Nike Air in there, just like the Air Jordan 1. Something really interesting about this shoe is actually the laces that lace up in the bottom right here. This is a separate flap, sort of like the flap on the Air Jordan 4 up here, or on the AJKO or a Dunk High up top. But on the Airship, the little flap is here, and it goes all the way down to the midsole and outsole to really strap you in. I don't know the history of the name Airship, but I'm thinking maybe it had to do with a spaceship, because a couple years earlier, the Air Force One came out, named after an airplane. These airships are amazing, and they've never ever been retroed. Back in the 80s, people think of Dunks, Air Force Ones, and Jordans, but there's also Airships, Air Terminators, Air Dynasties. There's so many different early basketball shoes that Nike could be retroing. You gotta love this pair of kicks. Let's talk a little bit about Larry Nance. So he actually won the very first NBA Slam Dunk contest in 1984, the same year that these shoes came out. I've got a Larry Nance rookie card right here for my days of collecting. Have a look real close at Larry Nance right there. Look how he's cupping the basketball. Larry Nance was an incredible power forward, and he was just amazingly strong, and he had this way of cupping the basketball, and that's sort of some of the dunks that he used to win the dunk contest in 1984. And he beat out Dr. J and Dominique Wilkins. And this was in the days of high flying, before people like Sean Kemp and Vince Carter were going between their legs and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Back in the day, the dunks that it took to win the slam dunk contest were just these crazy power jams. And just like how Larry Nance is cupping the ball there, he actually did it with two different basketballs at the same time. Anyway, it's been a pleasure walking you through the Cleveland Cavaliers Air Jordan 4s, the OG-looking Air Jordan 4s that released in 1999, and these incredible game-worn airships.